The movie commences with Casey Bowman visiting a jewelry store to purchase a necklace for his wife, Namiko. However, unbeknownst to Casey, two robbers are trailing him, aiming to rob him of his possessions. Despite the ambush, Casey easily subdues the assailants and returns home safely. Upon reaching home, he presents the necklace to Namiko, who is expecting their first child. Namiko appears delighted to receive a present from her spouse. That evening, she develops a craving for chocolate and urges her husband to buy some immediately. Being a considerate husband, Casey agrees and heads to the supermarket to fulfill his wife's request. However, as he is about to make the purchase, he realizes his wallet is missing. Hastily, he rushes back home. Concurrently, an intruder sneaks into Namiko's residence, intending to harm her. Upon returning home, Casey is horrified to discover his wife lying dead, with a mark from a barbed wire gun around her neck. On the day of the funeral, Casey's closest friend, Nakabara, a fellow student of Takeda Sensei, pays him a visit to offer his heartfelt condolences for Namiko's passing. Nakabara extends an invitation to Casey to train at his dojo in Thailand as a means to alleviate the anguish caused by his wife's tragic death. However, Casey declines the offer, driven by his determination to seek vengeance against his wife's killer. He suspects the robbers who accosted him after his visit to the jewelry store may be connected to Namiko's murder. To gather clues, Casey visits a dojo where he engages in a confrontation with several practitioners. Eventually, he learns the whereabouts of the two robbers and begins trailing them. In a secluded alley, Casey ambushes and eliminates them. Failing to uncover any leads about his wife's murder, Casey eventually heeds Nakabara's suggestion and travels to Thailand. Welcomed warmly by Nakabara, Casey is introduced to his students upon his arrival. Casey temporarily resides at Nakabara's dojo as he delves into the investigation of Namiko's murder and hunts down the perpetrator. During a sparring session with Lucas, one of Nakabara's students, Casey suddenly loses his composure and viciously attacks him with a bakken. Nakabara intervenes, urging Casey to control his emotions and suggests firewalking training as a means to achieve this. However, Casey halts the training midway due to the haunting memories of Namiko. To alleviate his restlessness, he visits a nearby bar for a drink, where he becomes embroiled in a brawl with intoxicated patrons. The next day, Casey, feeling the effects of the previous night's drinking, was about to start picking fruit in the garden. However, Lucas, noticing his condition, stepped in to take over his duties and advised him to rest instead. Casey expressed his gratitude to Lucas and promptly returned to his room. As he lay in bed, Casey experienced a restless sleep, as if his instincts were warning him of impending danger. His premonition proved true when he received news that Lucas had been found dead in the garden, killed with the same barbed wire weapon used on Namiko. Casey discussed this with Nakabara, who recognized the weapon as belonging to Goro. Nakabara then discloses to Casey that his father, along with Takeda Sensei and a man named Isamu, were the top students of the Koga Dojo. After their sensei passed away, Isamu challenged Takeda for control of the dojo. Takeda emerged victorious in the duel and was appointed as the Grandmaster to lead the dojo. Isamu's younger brother, Goro, witnessed the confrontation and swore to avenge his brother's death, even if it took 3 generations. Presently, Goro heads one of the biggest drug cartels in Myanmar. Nakabara advises Casey to go back to the United States because Takeda's son-in-law marks him as one of Goro's targets. However, Casey requests Nakabara's assistance in locating Goro, who has been heavily shielded in Myanmar, even garnering respect from the authorities. Nakabara then provides Casey with an old map of Burma dating back to his father's service in World War II, indicating the whereabouts of buried ninja weaponry. After expressing gratitude to Nakabara, Casey immediately travels to Myanmar, where he encounters a welcoming taxi driver named Mike, who transports him to an inn. Casey began arranging various ninja weapons and lethal poison, preparing for his mission. With Mike's assistance, he located a bar frequented by drug dealers that night. While quietly enjoying his drink, a man approached him and offered something, prompting Casey to follow him in hopes of gathering information about Goro. However, when Casey mentioned Goro's name, the man grew suspicious and called his friends to confront Casey. Despite being outnumbered, Casey easily overpowered them and extracted information about Goro. Upon returning to his hotel for rest, Casey was ambushed by corrupt police, who colluded with Goro, raiding his room with the intent to arrest him as an American spy. Despite attempting to flee, Casey was outnumbered and swiftly apprehended, leading to his immediate imprisonment. While in prison, Casey endures various forms of torture inflicted by the police. However, he feigns unconsciousness to halt the torture. As he's being led to his cell, Casey springs into action, overpowering the police officers and stealing their uniforms. Disguised as a policeman, Casey attempts to escape from the prison. Before his escape, he extracts information about Goro's whereabouts from a fellow police officer, who reveals that Goro is hiding in the heart of the forest. Once out of prison, Casey once again seeks assistance from Mike to navigate to the forest where Goro is concealed. Upon reaching the forest, Casey's presence was detected by Goro's patrols. Engaging in combat, Casey successfully eliminates all of Goro's men and confiscates their weapons. Venturing further into the woods, Casey eventually locates the graves of the Japanese soldiers mentioned by Nakabara. Unearthing a chest filled with ninja weaponry hidden beneath a wooden marker bearing the Nakabara clan emblem, Casey equips himself for the task ahead. With his preparations complete, Casey presses on and locates Goro's secret hideout. Infiltrating the headquarters, he systematically eliminates Goro's henchmen. Subsequently, he demolishes the base and confronts Goro's chief bodyguard and right-hand man named Mayat. A fierce combat erupts between Casey and Mayat. Despite initially being overwhelmed, Casey eventually succeeds in killing Mayat by piercing his heart and snapping his neck. Subsequently, Casey confronts Goro at his headquarters and engages in a duel with the elderly man. Although Casey inflicts a severe wound by slashing Goro's stomach, Goro persists in the fight. During the skirmish, Goro ensnares Casey's neck with barbed wire, but Casey summons all his might to break free and repel the assault. He then hurls Goro to the ground before beheading him. In short, having avenged his wife's death, Casey returns to Nakabara's dojo, where he is warmly welcomed back home. While engaged in conversation, a delivery man arrived to meet Nakabara. Casey noticed that the emblem on the delivery man's knife matched the emblem of the robbers who had previously robbed him in Japan. This revelation exposed Nakabara as the culprit behind Namiko and Lucas's deaths. It turns out Nakabara is involved in drug trafficking and manipulatively used Casey to eliminate the Goro cartel to further his ambition of controlling the drug trade in Southeast Asia. Nakabara then presents Casey with a choice: join him or face death. Clearly, Casey refuses to align himself with the killers of Namiko. The two men find themselves locked in a fierce battle, culminating in Casey delivering a powerful kick that sends Nakabara crashing through the fragile wall, revealing a room filled with ancient artifacts. Their fight continues in this room, with both wielding guns. Casey slashes Nakabara across the midsection, while Nakabara retaliates by stabbing Casey's left shoulder with his wakizashi. Nakabara attempts to lunge at Casey, but Casey seizes the barbed wire, wrapping it around Nakabara's neck and ultimately killing him. Following Nakabara's demise, Casey exposes Nakabara's true intentions to Hiroshi, a student at the dojo. Upon opening a package addressed to Nakabara, Hiroshi discovers drugs inside. Recognizing the potential damage Nakabara's actions could inflict on the dojo's reputation, Hiroshi chooses to deny the incident and expresses gratitude to Casey for bringing everything to light. With his revenge achieved, Casey returns to Japan and symbolically drops Namiko's locket into the pool, finding closure for his loss. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell if you want to watch more videos like this. Thank you for watching and see you again soon. Take care.